In the last video, we went back to a time period before I went full misery on my life. We went back to a time when I could play a game demo over and over again, and still have fun playing it many times more. I talked about the demo that introduced me to the Kane and Lynch franchise, a franchise that I actually really liked growing up. But because of it being dormant for 12 years, the memory of its existence had slowly started to fade away. In the not-so-distant past, a certain hammer-wielding Norse deity that nowadays wears pink high-heeled boots brought these memories back from the depths of my subconscious. And as a consequence of that, I developed the need to replay the two games that make up this critically divisive franchise, and make sure if there actually are any valid reasons behind my love of these games. So in the last video, I talked about Kane and Lynch Deadman, and I came to the realization that the interesting concept that the game spawned from, and the perfect time period that I played it in, blinded me to a lot of the problems that the game unfortunately had. Today, I'll put the sequel under the same not that magnifying glass, and together, we'll see how much of my opinion has changed since then. So, without further stalling, here are my thoughts on the Kane and Lynch Duology. Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days takes place 4 years after the disastrous escapades of the first game, and this time around, our psycho friend Lynchy is the one who fills the lead role. In this game, Lynch is trying to start a new life in Shanghai. He lives with a girlfriend named Shu and works as a low-level thug for an English-born expat with the designated name of Glazier. One beautiful smoggy Shanghai day, Glazier tells Lynch about a plan to smuggle guns to Africa. Knowing how well they work together, Lynch contacts Kane for aid, in return for splitting the deal. It seems like the money pay is big enough for both of them to retire, and Kane even sees it as another chance to fix the broken relationship that he has with his estranged daughter. Kane naturally accepts the job, and a few days later, he brings his Guaylo ass to Shanghai. Not even full 3 minutes after he meets up with Lynch, they are already chasing after a guy and his girlfriend, who's probably been leaking info about Glazier's operations. A few shootouts and a small dose of chasing later, Kane and Lynch manage to corner our light bulb-headed whistleblower. While holding his girlfriend as a human shield, the informant fires a shot at our protagonists, which in turn provokes Kane to fire back at him. The shot proves lethal, but not for the loose-lipped Baldy. Only his unfortunate girlfriend suffers the consequences of his actions. He looks at her lifeless body with shock, pulls out a small knife, and starts pointing it at the man which the game is named after. For a moment he hesitates to do anything, and suddenly he slices his throat open. This scene serves as the catalyst for the violent chaos that is yet to engulf our clueless protagonists. From here on out, Kane and Lynch are gonna be forced to survive through worse and worse situations, all the way through to the game's abrupt ending. I have to say that the storytelling is much improved in the sequel. It has a much better flow to it. The voice acting remains top tier, and what also really helps is the massive step up in the quality of the animations. They are using motion capture to animate the models, and it definitely elevates the cutscenes to a higher standard than its prequel. I also really like the fact that the game is presented as if it's shot on a crappy camcorder. I am of that opinion because it covers the already ugly world with another layer of beautiful ugliness. It's a really unique artistic choice, and it heightens the feel of wrongness and intensity that the game is already drenched in. The game devs really committed to the style. The camera work is shaky, you can see censorship on the screen whenever there's nudity or gore, and the background music is abstract, haunting, and it's a perfect addition to the before-mentioned mood of all-encompassing wrongness. The gameplay is tighter and more focused in Kane and Lynch 2. They have completely removed the tactical commands, which, if you ask me, is a good thing, because they were pretty much useless in Kane and Lynch 1 anyway. The automated cover and reload functions are also a thing of the past, and each of them actions is now executed by pressing a dedicated button. If there's a neighboring cover next to your cover, and the enemy fire is too hard to manage from your current cover, You can transfer to your neighboring cover by pressing the movement button that points in the direction that your neighboring cover is. And after that, you simply press the cover button. The shoot banging in this game is competent, and its intensity exceeds the first game, thanks to louder gun sounds, unstable camera work, and the return of the limited but spicy environmental destructions. The available arsenal remains more or less the same as in the first game, but this time around, the SMGs are rendered pretty much useless, and the more explosive boomsticks are nowhere to be found. The smoke and tear gas grenades are also absent, and the explosive ones are replaced by throwable gas canisters, which you'll need to shoot in order for them to have the same function as the grenade that they are meant to replace. In place of the close quarters insta-kills, you now have the ability to use the enemies as human shields. When you're in that state of being, you have the options to shoot at other enemies. You can throw your embraced foe onto an unembraced one, which will give you the opportunity to shower them both with bullets, or you can simply execute the poor schmuck who fell into your warm embrace of death. This time around, when you get shot full of holes, you get knocked down, but you can get up again by pressing the cover button. This mechanic works in a similar fashion as the adrenaline injections in the previous game, so the rule still stands that you should avoid to be put in that situation too frequently, because if the frequency of that happening is too high, you die! I kinda expressed how much I like the visuals of this game in the story presentation segment of this video, but since I want to follow the usual order that I write these scripts, I'm gonna talk about them aesthetics a little bit more. The main show seller in terms of graphics, it's obviously the post-processing camcorder effects, but the game's environments have also received a massive boost in detail. This translates to there's more junk scattered around the levels, but also the placement of said junk is way more natural compared to the previous game. Even though it's primitive, the addition of ambient occlusion is also very welcome, because it adds an extra level of depth to the detail-dense environments. In my opinion, it's a great looking game, and I would strongly recommend to play it on a lower resolution in order to achieve a more authentic camcorder video experience. And that's kinda it really. Even though it's as by the numbers as it can be in terms of gameplay, Kane Lynch 2 is a far better game than the one that came before. The presentation style is great, but I can see the shaky camera being a problem for some people, especially while you're sprinting. But thankfully, the developers have added a steady cam option that the weak-minded of us can activate at their leisure. The storytelling is much improved, but the game ends pretty abrupt.